Hi there, everyone. My name is Jenna Evelyn. I'm a neurodiversity self-proclaimed expert. I'm not quite there with the degree, but we're getting there. Last module. Um, I was diagnosed with ADHD when I was 21, and that led me on a very interesting journey of creating my business, Neurodiverse Generation, with a J. And I am here to chat to you guys about that today with Simanye.
Thank you very much for that. And I'm looking forward to this podcast interview. Uh, it's been something that I've been wanting to do, and I'm just glad that we actually
Yeah.
got the chance to do it now, you know.
Oh my gosh. And yeah, these obstacles that have been in our way, but we made it happen. We made it happen,
If
Simanye.
if only they knew uh the
If
op
only they knew.
if only they knew.
If only they knew about the tech support. Oh, the tech issues. Oh.
Oh my God. You know. But yeah, just so that we can try to dive into the podcast interview. Uh, can you tell us a bit about your journey with ADHD and also how it actually led you to become an educator and also an advocate for the neurodiversity?
That's such an interesting question. And it seems, I'll tell you why. Because
Okay.
believe it or not, this isn't what I wanted to do.
Is it?
This is not what I saw myself doing for the rest of my life. I wanted to be an actress growing up. I was working for it since I was like 5 years old. And by the time I was in high school, I was acting in insurance commercials and Showmax series and these incredible, like amazing things in between school. So
Okay.
I was already feeling pretty confident about my life, right? And where my life was going and this direction that my career was going. And I felt like I've always known what I wanted to do and I'm making it happen and it's great.
Okay.
And then alongside having undiagnosed ADHD meant I was dealing with a lot of family issues, a lot of conflict with my folks. There were several periods, even in matric, when I was kind of in and out of the house. I was, staying with a teacher here, and so it was a pretty unstable kind of an environment.
Okay.
And in the midst of finishing matric and kind of just going into like this new I'm now
Yeah.
going into the real world. I'm now going into adulthood. I think I definitely lost my way quite a bit. And I hate talking about what what causes a person to attempt suicide because it's such an individual experience and it's such a
True.
unique pain that is incredibly difficult to comfort from an outside source or even to comprehend because I think it's so easy to look at someone else's situation and say, oh, well, I wouldn't have done that. I wouldn't have been there. But with the right or the wrong imbalances, shall I say, chemically in one's brain, with that being undiagnosed and unmedicated, can lead to those moments happening a lot more often than one might think.
Okay.
Um, and so I landed up attempting suicide. It was my fourth suicide attempt at that point. I was 18 years old. And the varsity that I had been attending, when they heard about the suicide attempt and which we discovered consequently after, misdiagnosis I received of borderline personality disorder, they kicked me out of the school. They sent me a WhatsApp. They said, no, this is a private institution. You've signed all of our indemnities. And frankly, we just don't think the school is the right fit for you, but we're happy to recommend you elsewhere. All of a sudden, I couldn't get a single agent to represent me anywhere in Johannesburg. And I felt so hopeless. I didn't want to stick around to see how things could work out. If my life could go so badly wrong right when it was supposed to be beginning, you know, and it had just been this consistent emotional dysregulation, conflict, feeling misunderstood, it really does easily get a person to that point. And I then decided, after taking a gap year, not by choice, but such is life. After taking a gap year, I decided I was going to study something else. Psychology had always been plan B. So I thought, hey, what the heck, why not? I went into it in UJ, and it was only in my second year at varsity that I was sitting in a social psychology lecture where they were teaching us about ADHD and ADD. And I thought, hang on, doesn't everyone deal with this? And obviously it's on this superficial level and everything. And it happens a lot, believe me. There's seldom a lecture that goes by where I'm not like, where I'm sitting in the class and I don't think to myself, oh my gosh, I have like 10 of these. I have 10 of these disorders because you identify with all of them.
Okay.
And I decided to go and get myself tested with a friend of mine who was in the industry. She did something called an electroencephalogram on me, which is, they attach those electrodes like alien probe style
Oh,
to your
okay.
scalp, and they measure your brain waves when your eyes are open, closed, like asleep, awake, all of those things. But that's, I think, an EEG. Yeah. So my friend did a QEEG on me, a qualitative electroencephalogram, and my prefrontal cortex lit up like a Christmas tree. We also noticed a delay in response between the front of my brain and the back of my brain, but large enough to notice on these scans.
Okay.
So estimating my brain has the front of my brain has always worked like 8 times faster than the back of my brain, and I've had to learn to cope with that. And it's interesting how many coping mechanisms you figure out like throughout that journey without even necessarily knowing that there's something consciously wrong, you know?
Okay.
And when I was diagnosed finally correctly with ADHD, I was so relieved that I didn't have borderline personality disorder, first of all. That there was actual science. There was a piece of paper that I could show my mom and dad to say I'm not crazy, you know?
This is what's happening.
And exactly, 100%. And it meant that I could finally start seeing a therapist and an amazing psychiatrist who got me on the right medication. And since then, the way I like to describe it is it's a bit like living in the same room with someone for your whole life, for like 21 years in my case, right? But
Okay.
there's a divider in the middle of the room. So you can't see or you don't like talk to this person. You can hear them existing. You're aware of each other, but you're not like friendly.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden when you're 21, that comes down and you meet this person. It turns out they are like your best friend, and it's wow, you are capable of so much more than you thought you were. And there are so many people like that out there. It's a lot more than just acceptance about neurodiversity. It's celebrating neurodiversity. It's learning how to empower neurodivergents to empower themselves. Because we do need to be taught, unfortunately. Life doesn't come with a manual, and we've already got, version 2.0 of the brain thing. So we're figuring this out just as much as anyone else. Um, I just I think it's really important that we can teach neurodivergence how to capitalize on the strengths that come with neurodiversity, because there are all sorts of things, advanced memory, energy levels that just hyper focus. It's insane what we are capable of if it's harnessed correctly.
Yeah.
So that is what my business Neurodiverse Generation, which I launched in, what was it, June this year? June
Yeah.
this year. And that's what that company is all about. I've got a podcast that's going to be launching soon. Keep an eye open. Simanya's going to be on it. We're making
Yeah.
plans.
Yeah.
I've got a blog. I've got my website. I do talks, interactive talks. I do coaching. And I've really just kind of leapt into this life that it's kind of guided me towards. I've been guided towards this life because it isn't what I would have chosen for myself, but adaptability is key in life. And I think
True.
a lot of the time, what we're meant for is not necessarily what we consciously think we want to do
Yeah.
until
True.
we feel that fulfillment, you know?
That is absolutely true. And thank you very much for sharing that. I think as you have mentioned, there's quite a lot of people which are in that same position, but then they just do not know what's happening, and you
Yeah.
making sure that that is out there. You actually, because at the very same time, I think as you did mention, there is the podcast that you are starting. There's the blogs that you have. You also doing some speakings also at the very same time, which to me I think it it you are bringing it out there, And that is really
Thank
amazing.
you.
That is really
Oh,
amazing,
thank you,
you know?
Simone. Honestly, that is the goal, I think, is that we live in a world where everything is it's tactile, if that makes sense. You
True.
can engage with things in so many different ways. And so we've got to capitalize on it because it's so easy to miss something, you know?
That's absolutely
But
true.
you're the expert in that sense, I suppose.
Yeah, you could say that, but I do not like giving myself uh that
I know
specific,
exactly what you mean.
yeah.
It's that imposter syndrome, man. Don't worry, I'm here for you. I'm here for it.
You hear it, and I'm glad that is, because you're one of the best. And having a conversation with you, I've really gotten to actually see that for myself, you know.
Oh,
And as I was saying, what you are doing, you shouldn't look at it lightly. It's something that is really huge,
oh, thank you.
because at the very same time, I think nowadays, uh, people that actually share that kind of content, that actually give out that kind of value, it's rare, because it's in terms of capitalizing on it, which,
That's so true. We live in a world where it's like there's AI, there's all these things that can make generic stuff.
you
Like
know,
quantity is no longer the question. It's definitely quality. I so agree. And I love what you said earlier on. Oh my gosh, I can't even remember what it was, but it sparked a thought for me. Oh, you said people often don't even realize what they're going through. They just know it's like tough, right?
yeah,
And I think particularly when it comes to neurodiversity, it took me ages to realize, um, sorry, my brain does this a lot. It just blanks. This is going to happen. It happens at
yeah.
least once every podcast I do. I'm telling you, I'm going to make a bloopers like reel one of these days of all of them.
Just to
Any
show
case,
it.
you know what I'm saying.
Yeah,
It took me a really long time to get comfortable enough to talk about my story, to say, this is what happened to me, and to know full well that there are people out there who, you know, ultimately there are people out there who don't want you to succeed. The
true.
majority of people, I like to give people the benefit of the doubt, don't get me wrong.
Yeah,
But in my case, the very people who were supposed to and who were equipped to help me were the very ones who rejected me for who and what I was. And that's
true.
been a very difficult it's called rejection sensitive dysphoria. And it's been a very difficult hurdle for me to overcome as well. Um, and I think just just acknowledging within one's own mind that what I'm experiencing is valid and real. I used to fake sick all the time in primary school because I just couldn't, I was being bullied awfully. I had like no friends. I could not see through a day at school. And I would like sob and I was like, no, I don't want to go to school, mom and dad. Um, and that was never, in my household, I don't know about you. In my household, we South African, we don't get mental health sick days. That's not
True.
how this works,
Absolutely true.
unfortunately. And so I found myself, having to, oh, I've got a headache. No, my tummy hurts. No, I can't, because that was the only acceptable reason that I could stay. And in my own mind, I justified it by telling myself, or not, I can't even say justified it, actually, that's the wrong term. I condemned myself internally, saying, oh, you're just lazy. You see, you're missing out on school, and now mom and dad are mad at you, and it's your own fault. And you don't even realize that this internal
Yeah,
dialogue is going on the whole time, where your conscious brain is living in a completely different world to the rest of your body chemically. That's crazy to
true,
me.
true. And just to add to that, I I don't know, but if on your side you would agree with this, but one thing that I've grown to understand is, first of all, in terms of the rejection side, it, it's just a matter of, like for instance with me, right? Uh,
Hmm.
having to start, having to start, uh to get into the entrepreneurship space, and
Yes.
yeah, and then also at the very same time, uh, like for instance, I don't know, no, I've never mentioned this, but on my side, I never actually uh got to reach the finish line of my education, right?
Oh,
So
really?
honestly, I've never actually what I
And you
actually
know, I would never guess, Simanya. You
no,
are so educated at the way you come across. But it goes to show you education is this much about what you learn in school and this much about what you decide to do for yourself, right?
exactly because on my side it was just a matter of I actually got into the entrepreneurship space while I was actually still in high school, and I
Wow.
was like immediately when I started to see that this path that I'm actually in, which is education, it wasn't actually going to take me where I actually envisioned myself for a very long time. So I was just at that point where I was like, there is no way I'm actually doing this,
I know
which,
exactly what you mean. You couldn't see the forest for the trees. That's
you know,
like such an
I,
ADD thing.
I was like, there's no way I'm actually doing this. So then I was like, let me just, I actually convinced my mother to let me go to a college, and
Yes.
while I was there, that's when I started to actually build the whole thing, right? And the next year, I was like, I'm definitely not going back, So,
Oh yeah.
you know,
Once there's a beautiful saying that actually fits what you're saying perfectly. It's something along the lines of once the mind has expanded its limitations, it can never shrink back.
exactly, because on that specific side, I believe that there's a lot that I actually got to learn, and I was at that point where I was
Yeah.
like, there's no way I'm actually doing this. But what I was actually trying to get to with this is that sometimes in terms of rejection, it happens, Now
Yeah.
having to say that uh it hurts, or having to say that when it happens you don't like it, the more you do not accept it,
Yeah.
the more it will keep on happening, and the more it
That is
actually,
so true.
and the more it happens, the more you will get hurt. The more you get hurt, the more you start thinking about you'll start work or just trying to convince your brain that you are not meant for these things. And one thing about,
Yes.
you know and one thing that I learned about our brain as human beings is that the moment you feed whatever you feed your brain, right, or whatever
Yes.
you feed yourself, the brain starts to take it in, and then it starts to spread it, right?
That's
Now,
so true. It's
you know,
literally that country stock butter spread margarine. It goes all over.
ex- exactly, so
And it's so easy to internalize this stuff, right?
you know so it now, if you keep on telling yourself, like for instance, if you giving yourself negative energy, like for instance, on my side, and you guys have to know that I will be making examples about myself or people around me. So,
Oh, but we have to. Listen, you and I both, we're in the same boat here. Like, I
you
don't
know,
have a degree or anything. I am basing this on experience. I'm no diagnostician,
you
disclaimer.
know, you know, so on my side, when I was actually in this whole thing, there was a lot of the rejection, and
Yeah.
I actually took it on, and I'm just even right now, I'm just at that point where even if it comes, I just look at it and then I'm like, what's next? I just go to the next thing,
Yeah.
because it doesn't,
Yes.
the moment it starts to actually affect me, that's when I will start to feed myself bad energy. And the moment I feed myself bad energy, it's going to
Yes.
affect everything around me, you know.
That is so
So
true. They say what you water will grow, right? My
exactly.
mom's even I'm look at me with these sayings today. I'm throwing them out like it's Instagram captions, man. My mom also always tells me like when I get super upset about something that's like really small, like someone with like horrible to me in traffic. I nearly swore, but I held it back, hey? Someone was being horrible to me in traffic, and I just, oh, and I couldn't control it in the moment, and I allowed myself to get emotional about it. Now, making that die down can be a lot. It's a
True.
task and a half for me, which is why I try not to get like emotionally riled up over things. But it can be really, really difficult not to internalize something that's as personal as rejection is. So, I think, oh, there was something I wanted to tell you about this. There's something I wanted to tell you about that. And it was such a good point. I'm going to tell you when I remember.
Okay.
I
No problem. But be sure to let me know about it. I'm really,
will.
really, and also,
I'll go back.
yeah. Yeah, and so thank you very much for sharing that. I think it's something that is really important. And as I did mention, a lot of people go through things that they do not even know that are actually happening. Now having you having to notice that this was happening and needed that specific change. And also you mentioned something which was interesting, which is what you actually decided to go with. It wasn't what you had in your books or in your plans, but you
Yeah.
started to embrace it and started focusing on it and started doing it, which is,
Yes.
you know, which is really amazing because a lot of us, we tend to, like for instance, you mentioned that you've been in, you were in acting basically, or and modeling, right?
Yes. Hmm.
You know, and
Oh, I
then
don't miss the industry though, I won't lie.
why is that?
Maybe I'm maybe I'm biased, but I like the people in this industry more. They tend to,
A
they're
bit
more direct.
realistic.
There's no agenda.
Yeah,
There's no, you know what I'm saying? Like
exactly.
just
That's
down to
all.
earth people. It's more my vibe.
That's absolutely
Oh,
true.
I
Okay.
remembered what I wanted to tell you. As people, we're wired to try to avoid discomfort. And discomfort for us means conflict. It means any kind of negative emotion. It means anything along those lines, right?
True.
So we tend to avoid these negative emotions that we experience. And one of the toughest lessons I've had to learn, particularly when emotional dysregulation was essentially running my life. Oh my gosh, puberty was hell. Not just for me, my parents, like you don't want to know. But it's really important that one can take a step back at the end of the day and go, not my circus, not my monkeys. And that's what having that thick skin really means, is it's essentially the ability to create a bubble around yourself that other things bounce, like it just bounces off like water off a duck's back, right?
Yeah.
And actually sometimes sitting with those uncomfortable emotions and sometimes calmly, assertively addressing the conflict or just being direct and addressing things head on when they make you uncomfortable. Even if there's nothing you can do to fix it right now, just sit with it. Sit and
True.
have coffee with that little monster that's irritating you on the inside, because I promise you when it's done, it'll leave. But it won't leave until you hear it out.
Exactly. That is absolutely true. You're dropping some bars today. That I have to
Oh,
say. You
I
drop.
feel like I'm on fire, dude. And so are you. I'm like, no, this is, you guys care. Low key, a little bit of a spoiler here, but Simanya and I are going to be co-hosting one or two
Yeah.
episodes on my podcast as well for the first season, which I'm so excited about. I have so many ideas. And
Yeah.
Simanya has been so instrumental in making that happen. So I also have to thank you for that, by the way. But now I'm derailing this. Talk to me.
Thank you very much for that. Thank you very much. And they should actually check it out. Uh, if
Yay.
actually by now you have the links to it, I think we'll just have to insert them down there, you know.
Yeah, we'll do that 100%. Otherwise, we'll definitely put my website there as well. You're welcome to contact
True.
me on my website. I've got, I say an agony aunts column. Simanye, like how in the old like 90s magazines, right? Like 17 and whatever, they
Yeah.
had agony aunts columns. So it was like someone would write in and they'd say, dear agony aunts, this is the problem that I'm experiencing, and what do you advise? Sincerely, anxious. And like, they sign it with a pseudonym like that, like anxious. So
Okay.
I was sitting thinking to myself, I can do something like that. Or, the weirdos like me. the neurodivergence, you know?
Yeah.
So I have created my own agony aunts column called Spectrum Support. And I
Okay.
would really, really love it if we could. I'm going to post I'm going to send you the link so we can post it in the description as
Yeah.
well. But I'd love to get some more letters in from people. I want to hear from you. I want to share your stories, and I want to make people realize that we are human at the end of the day, and that feeling this way is a human thing. And it's not something to be shunned, and it's not something you will be shunned for on the side of the train tracks.
Yeah. And I actually did notice it on your website.
Oh, great. What did you
Yeah.
think? I'd love your feedback.
It's really amazing. And as you,
Really ADHD.
I was actually going to say that, uh, it 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 it's really really creative, you know, because on
Thank
my
you.
side it's to be honest, it's something that I wouldn't have thought of, but now looking at it, I'm like, what's this, man? You know, so it's
It's kind
really
of fun, right? I never got to run the school
exactly
paper. What can I say? I had to do it for
exactly
myself.
it's
But
it's
yeah,
really
thank you. That
amazing.
really it means a lot to me because you and I are in the business of inspiring creativity in people like us and
True,
people not like us. We're just in the business of inspiring, I think, and creating. And
true.
inspiring that creativity is just that's what we aim for at the end of the day.
Yeah, absolutely true. So I think you did kind of no, I think you got a bit into it. Because what I wanted to ask you is what actually inspired you to start teaching others about the importance of understanding and also managing neurodiversity, you know, particularly
Right.
in the workplace and also educational settings.
So again, this is so based on my own experience.
Okay.
Um, having grown up like I went to a private school for primary school, and then I went to a government school for high school. And I must say, high school was a joy, primary school was hell. So I found myself in situations where, my parents are paying top dollar for me to go to like the most amazing schools to be taught by some of the best educators in the country. And yet they couldn't pick this up. Now, in all fairness, they're not diagnosticians either. But there was a recurring thing that I heard, right? Let's talk about school first of all. There were these recurring terms and phrases that I would hear every flippin' parents' evening, right? It's, Jenna is so smart. She's really capable, but she's just lazy, hey? And she's distractible. She distracts the others. She's daydreaming. She never does her homework. She's late every time from break. And it's the same things all the time. My parents, no matter how they punished me, it was like they were like, why can't you get it through your skull? And
Mm,
I'm like, I don't think you understand that I'm trying my best here, but I can't say that like that. I can't say to you, oh, well, I'm trying my best. And there are some of these simple things that are easy for everyone else that I just can't do. I can't say that, particularly if it's in like an argument setting, because I don't
yeah,
want to be vulnerable. It's again that instinct to shy away from discomfort, right?
yeah,
And I know how much of a difference it would have made to, I honestly think I probably I don't know if I would have liked myself if I had met myself. I don't know. I don't know if we would have been friends. We might have really irritated each other if that ever happened, you know? But I would have given anything to get this kind of advice. And it wasn't like I was looking for the advice. I was looking to understand. I was looking for a revelation because I felt misunderstood by everything around me. It was this vicious cycle, right? So now I get angry and I get upset and I'm all, oh, I'm not late all the time, and I don't do your homework because it's stupid, and I say things like that instead, which end up damaging my personal relationships.
true.
I think looking at my mom and knowing my mom's side of the story is a big part of this for me because it was really, really, let me give you some context. My mom is like a conservative, like Boerevrou Tannie. Like this is her personality. She's like, you're so skinny, eat some more. This is her, right? but she's very conservative. So all these, and I'm like a very out there liberal person. So parenting and that maternal instinct didn't necessarily come naturally to her right off the bat. But she tried so, so hard to figure out why she just could not get this kid to work with her, me. And since the diagnosis, and since I've been on the right medication, since I've been able to communicate in far more clear vocalizations of what I'm dealing with, how I can't deal with this right now because I've got sensory overwhelm or I've whatever, right?
Okay.
Because she knows I've got ADHD, she can show me grace. She can show me a bit of understanding. Because she can show me grace, I can regulate myself. Because I can regulate myself, the conversation remains constructive.
Okay.
And I would love to teach people how to do that, not just with their loved ones, but with anyone they come across. Learning how to recognize this person is neurodiverse. I'm not a diagnostician, I'm not calling them autistic or like, I'm not going to try and guess, but I can see that your brain works in a particular way. And having the flexibility to allow people to work within their comfort zones, whether that's in school, your corporate environments, particularly when it comes to parents and their kids. That relationship, that power dynamic it can be slippery at times, particularly with a neurodivergent kid. And I think if this kind of thing was just more common knowledge, if this was more like the norm in that sense, and if more people knew about it, more people could recognize it, more people could assist, more people could show understanding instead of taking videos when someone's having a meltdown in the middle of a shopping center because they can see that this is someone who needs help. Because it doesn't look pretty. That's one of the biggest things I talk about is that the reality of neurodivergence is that it's not all, oh, my memory is great because I'm neurodiverse. Woohoo, superwoman. It's called a disorder for a reason because there are other things that are harder for us, that are easier for everyone else, even if it's swapped the other way around, even if it's like the same vice versa, you know?
Okay.
So
So,
yeah,
okay.
I think that was really what inspired me to get into just talking about this, making this something that people can discuss, making it something where, someone can come forward and say, how's it, I've been diagnosed with bipolar, I'm on meds, but I'm having a really rough day today. So I'd appreciate it if I could just have a bit of space or whatever. And people can go, oh yeah, dope, no stress, man. I'm here if you need me. Like, where does that happen? That doesn't
Never
realistically
happens.
happen.
Yeah.
And we live in a world where we like to make out like that's how we live, but behind closed doors, it's not what actually happens, right?
True. True.
So it's about changing what happens, changing the integrity, and I suppose adding an element of integrity to that neurodiverse understanding.
Okay. And it's quite impressive, and it's really awesome how the idea actually came about. And what do I mean by
Right?
this? It's that, as you've mentioned, you've went through everything, right? Uh, at the very same time, you could have just decided, let me just do this. Let me just keep this information to myself. It will only help me. Uh, Anyone
Right?
else, I do not care about that. You had that choice, and the fact that you were like, you know what, this is this is how it is. Uh, Instead of me actually hiding it, shying away from it, let me just bring it forward. Let me just
And
try to,
capitalize on it.
you know,
For sure.
you
My
know.
mom was even saying to me the other day, she was like, we've been through too much hell with this. We need to make some money off of it now.
She sounds like a vibe.
Oh yeah, straight to the point, hey? Like,
Yeah.
only want to hear one click.
You know,
Okay.
yeah, and having to take that and just bring it forward, start teaching others about this, because as I'm actually saying, you had the choice to say, let me just keep this to myself. Uh, it doesn't matter who what's happening with that person's life, as long as I'm good. That is enough for me. But you decided, let me just
Mm.
take it out there. which is really amazing. And you mentioned something which is uh with the information that you're trying to bring out there, you want to actually even help people that get to a point where when people see someone that is having a breakdown, instead of them just taking out their phones and just recording it, uh, they put their phones inside and then they try to go assist however they
You
can,
get what I'm saying?
you
Like, let
know?
me sit with you. Are you okay? Do you need water? We don't have to talk, but I'll sit with you until this is over.
You
That
know,
kind of a thing. Absolutely.
you know, and I think those kinds of things are things that are really important because if you look at how things are actually going right now, the moment someone sees something happening, immediately what happens is there's a trigger in their brains which says, let me just take out the phone, let me just try to make a training video.
But that's so true. It's like a little red flag that pops up for all of us that goes,
Honestly.
oh, they weren't supposed to do that. Like, and we know that it's that, what do I do? I don't think I should I look or, and it's that discomfort, that awkwardness that we need to address, that we need to get comfortable with,
You
because
know.
it's the only way we can make this a more humane experience. I'm so grateful you invited me on this podcast, Simanya. This is so fun.
I'm glad. I'm glad. And you know, as I was actually saying, people just take out their
Sorry, I'm
phones.
terrible.
No problem.
Go
No,
for it.
no problem. I do not mind. You know, people just take out their phones and they just record it, you know. Some
Mm.
people they do not understand what's happening with their lives, so they try to intoxicate themselves to find the certain direction, right? And you know those things actually happen, and I strongly believe that with what you are doing, uh, you are, let me just say, you'll be changing the world one person at a time, which is really amazing, you know. So
Oh, that's the dream, Simanya, because I think like one can talk to an audience of faceless strangers and they can all be super moved and give a standing ovation and it's gone
true,
great and yay, everyone's so happy. But the speaker does not walk away feeling half as fulfilled as they would, or at least as I would, shall I rather say, having that one-on-one experience. When I notice in one of my nursery school dance classes that there's a 3-year-old kid who's very clearly got a, I don't know, a tactile sensitivity. He doesn't want to take off his shoes or something, you
okay.
know, that for me is incredibly rewarding because I'm like, I feel like I've just come across like a gold nugget, and I have to protect it. I have to protect it as the gold nugget that it is before someone, tries to destroy it or before someone misunderstands it for trash.
True.
Or you get what I'm saying? That is
Yeah.
so much more rewarding for me. And you're really kind. You're so generous, Simon. You've been very kind to me today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I just strongly believe in that, you know. Uh, so
Mm.
so even on your side, I think I'm just, you'll be hearing this a lot. What you're
Hmm.
doing, don't take it lightly because it definitely will change a lot of people's lives. You might not see it in the next month, if you might not see it in the next year, 2 years, but it it will. And sometimes people will not come up to you and tell you this is what actually happened and you changed my life in this way, but you will be changing
But you
someone's
don't
life,
realize, hey, the
you
impact
know.
you can actually have on someone. Man, from one creative mind to another, like mad respect. Let's make this a movement. We're gonna
You know.
make it a thing.
Yeah, definitely, definitely, because I think it's something uh that we first of all need to try and focus on, because at the very same time it is hard to be able to change people's minds and change certain things that they do. But the moment you do that, you and what I normally say is, I actually was telling, I think it was Kim or Charlotte, that
Yes.
yeah, that sometimes in 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 our whole existence, there's something that we tend to not understand, right? Which is that
Hmm.
a lot of people, even myself at one time, which is basically not knowing or not understanding the reason why you are on this planet, right?
That
And
purpose, right?
you know,
That sense, and it's ingrained in your identity
you
for
know,
sure.
and how I actually look at it is that we are in this planet, we are all here just so that we can provide value to the next person, right? And
That's so true.
and it's not very hard to actually find that, because what
It's
happens
really not.
you're gonna say?
No, 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 no. I'm sorry. I'm just agreeing with you. Yeah.
Oh, okay. No problem. So it's not really hard, because one thing that you need to notice is that if even in your lives, there's a lot of people that come in your life, right? Some, they come
Mm.
with good things, some come with bad. But at the end of it all, the ones that came with bad, there's a lesson in that, right? Which is
Yes.
they brought value to your life, because you started to understand that, okay, no, this isn't something that I was supposed to do. So I need to try, so
Even if you just look at it from like an evolutionary
you know,
perspective, right? We are adjusting all the time to this feedback. So that's all it is it's feedback
you know,
ultimately, you know?
so yeah, I think it's honestly really important, and at the very same, did you have anything to say?
I can't remember, but if I do, I'll let you know.
Okay, because I think I did cut you out there when you wanted to say something.
No, not at all.
Okay. And then also at the very same time, how yeah, I think this one is really important. How do you actually approach educating people about neurodiversity? Uh, what are the key topics or concepts that you actually emphasize?
You know, I think it's a little bit, it's not therapy, disclaimer, but it's a little bit like therapy in the sense that a therapist cannot work with a client doesn't who doesn't want help, who doesn't want to heal, who doesn't think there's anything wrong, who doesn't want to, you get what I'm saying, who
Yeah.
isn't looking, like you say, for that opportunity for growth. Which is why often when therapists find themselves in situations where, someone's been referred to them because work said they have to see a psychiatrist or they're going to get fired, or the wife said, I'm going to leave and take the kids unless you go to therapy. So, or like, you get what I'm saying? Then you've
Yeah.
got those uncooperative clients. I think that is one of the incredible benefits about what I do, is that I get to work with people who do give a damn.
Okay.
I get to work with people who actually care about the kids they teach, their loved ones, their employees, who care enough to try to genuinely, intrinsically understand oneself on an authentic level. And because of that, approaching this side of things is really quite easy, because all one can really do is lead the horse to the water, right? You can't make it drink. I
Mm.
can provide information, I can provide context, and I can provide a human factor to it as someone who's been through it, as someone who went through the wars, as someone whose life was only supposed to be starting, and yet I wanted it over and done. Um, and I think that's what's so important here is getting that message out there. It's just making it a part of the dialogue, because it's like you say, it's exactly like the point you said just now. The brain absorbs everything that we hear, everything, and then it makes more of what you give it.
True. Absolutely
So
true.
even subconsciously creating, oh my gosh, the conspiracy theorists are going to be like, they're brainwashing us. But even on a subconscious level, making this a more common topic of discussion, like having people actually talk about it. We need to talk. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely true.
This is the missing link here. If we just talk about this a little bit more, we can make this world so much more tolerant for people like me.
That is really true. And even on my side, I'm just at that point where now I do not even have a question to ask you, because because you've actually went in depth, and I fully actually understand it, you know. I really, really do understand it. So On that
I'm so
side,
glad.
on
I
that,
struggle sometimes to verbalize and to vocalize like what I mean. So that's very reassuring to me. Thank you.
we're pretty much the same person,
Right? Tell me
Yeah.
about it, man. We bounce off each other. We should make our own show. We're gonna talk.
Yeah. What we'll be talking about on that show?
Oh
What's
my gosh, anything. Anything and every oh my gosh, there are podcasts out there where they talk the utmost. Yeah.
Yeah. Food.
You and me, we can make this work. Drop a comment below. Or what? Can you comment with podcasts? Are you doing this on
Yeah.
Spotify?
Yeah.
You kids so they can comment.
They can
Comment below
comment.
if you think we should make a show. Let us know. We want
Yeah.
name ideas.
Yeah, even the name ideas, they should come
Right?
from the listeners, you know. Uh
Yeah, I love that.
yeah, and then also at the very same time, uh what are some common misconceptions about neurodiversity uh that you've encountered basically? And how do you think, or how okay, yeah, how do you think uh people actually overcome them?
Right. That's an amazing question. You know, and that can go back even to my misdiagnosis of borderline personality disorder. I find it so interesting that I felt this insane amount of shame over this diagnosis. But ADHD, I didn't change in between. It's still emotional dysregulation. It's still like time blindness. It's still all these intersecting symptoms, right? I don't think time blindness is one, but for lack of another idea. And I lost it. No, you see, it happened again. I'm so
Second
glad.
time.
This is okay. Okay. But this, you see, I told you this was going to happen like all the time.
Yeah.
So what was I saying? I was
Okay,
on a
so
roll.
so you're basically explaining about what I did ask you, which is the misconceptions part.
The misconceptions, right,
Yeah.
100%. One of the most common ones that I hear is like, and it's particularly pertaining to ADHD. When people find out that there's this element of emotional dysregulation to ADHD, that there is something known as rejection sensitive dysphoria, that like across the board, whether you're autistic, bipolar, you can list off all of them, right?
Yeah.
This is a possible symptom. And when one thinks of something like ADHD, one doesn't think of emotional dysregulation, which is why it seems like a safe diagnosis. It seems like a diagnosis you might be judged slightly less for, maybe as like a little bit less unhinged, you know, because you're masking all the time, you're going through the world like literally with this facade of I'm normal, I think just like everyone else, and no one, that meme, they're gonna know, they're not gonna know, they're gonna know, they're gonna know.
Very good.
That imposter syndrome can be so torturous. It really can. Um, and so that misconception about ADHD it's a paradoxical one because there's a part of me that wants it to change, that wants the world to understand exactly what being ADHD is. And it's what I push for, it's what I strive for, because it's what needs to happen if we're going to make this, more of a dialogue and spoken about a little bit more. But there's another part of me that selfishly wants the world to remain ignorant so that I can hide behind my diagnosis. And that's the part of me that people might refer to as the victim.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? It's that tendency that we have to, when people turn around and say to you, no, this person is using neurodiversity as an excuse. Mm,
Okay.
That's it. So I think the importance in keeping oneself honest with oneself, just being honest with yourself. You know who and what you are. You know what you're capable of. You know the worst things you have ever done. You know the worst things you would ever be willing to do. No one else has that
True.
insight into your brain. Only you.
True.
And because of that, only you have the capacity to, it's like literally, let's go Spider-Man, right? With great power comes great responsibility.
True.
Along that same kind of line of thinking. It's The capacity to recognize that I can do damage with this, but I can do something else with it rather. And choosing to be constructive rather than destructive, those are the people I want to work with, you know?
Okay.
Yeah.
Again, you're dropping bars today.
Dude.
I'm
Oh,
literally listening to them like, okay, you know,
I love this. I love this, man.
you're really, really
It's going
dropping
to be so
bars.
much better, but it's going to be so much better when I can actually get my mic set up properly. Just think we can,
But
it's going
it's
to be
it
great. It's going to be
but
great.
it's good because the quality is pretty much good. You can't even
Oh, that's
know,
great.
you know, it's literally good.
Oh, fabulous.
So
Okay.
so on that side, you're good,
Oh,
you know.
fabulous. Okay.
Yeah,
Oh my
and
gosh. Have you
you're
seen
gonna
the
say,
time? Sorry, I know we're
yeah,
recording, but have you seen the time?
I did. But I think
Okay,
what
that's
I'll
fine.
just do is I'll just try to reschedule it. I'm sure
Okay.
there won't be a problem. Let's just
Oh,
continue that.
bless.
Now, this podcast has a lot of value, which can't be
It
stopped. So,
has, I
we can't
so
pause it.
get you. And
So,
it's that spontaneous magic of it. You know what I'm
you know,
saying? And that's so like what I do, man. I was talking to someone yesterday who said, Jenna, you can't make your brand like too polished. I'm like, what? What do you mean? Like, what do you mean I can't make it too polished? They're like, listen, it's the authenticity behind that vulnerability and that humanity and that genuine, let's just sit down and have a conversation, person to person, and see what we can do, see what we can do for each other, see how we can connect. That's the goal. That's the dream.
honestly, that is true. And yeah, now another question that I happen to have for you, which is, and I think you will be able to answer this question perfectly. So, how can businesses and also educational institutions, create environments that are more inclusive and supportive to neurodivergent individuals?
So this is my golden tip. My golden tip, I'll give it away for free, right? And it across the board, whether it's classrooms, corporate, whatever. And it's particularly difficult to do in corporate, might I add, but it's well worth taking a look at. Deformalize every aspect of your classroom, your business, your whatever that you can afford to deformalize. It seems like such a okay and then type of a thing, like that you're asking me to loosen the reins here. Surely they need to be tightened in a different way or but realistically, there needs to be an open, your employees, your kids need to have the kind of relationship with you where they can come to you and say, I can't work like this.
Okay.
And that is something that my mum actually teaches incredibly effectively, is management and leadership skills, is cultivating that relationship with your kids, with your clients, with whatever, right? With your students, I suppose. Um, and I think it's so important because that deformalization of every aspect of it means that you are quite literally telling you're sending a message to neurodivergence that it's safe to unmask here. And if there is a safe space, and that doesn't mean, someone can have a breakdown in the middle of the office. That means we've got a break room with bean bags and a TV that shows super sport
Okay.
at all times. If you need a 2-minute break, it's the quiet room. No one's going to talk. There's headphones if you want to watch a TV. Like, I'm getting very creative here. Like, this is the dream job. But you get what I'm saying. Like, a space where someone can just go and sit in the quiet room where they can just think, regulate, gather their thoughts. That kind of sensitivity to the ways that we work differently is where the accommodations come in. For example, the world works on a neurotypical kind of a scale, right? In the
Okay.
sense that Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, that's work time. Friday to Sunday, that's now our weekend and family time and everything. Neurodivergents don't, or let me say for myself and for a lot of people with ADHD, time doesn't work that way for me. I measure how long it takes me to get from my house to work by how many songs I can play in between, because I have no other sense of time, which means that I'm working primarily with my energy levels. It
Okay.
means that when I have my energy spike at 2 o'clock in the morning, I can get some of my best work done. But if I'm in a situation where I'm working for an employer who um who's like, no, you must come into the office every single day. You wear heels and a pencil skirt and makeup, and your hair must be up, and da, 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 and you come in and you work, and then you can leave not a minute before 5 p.m. Consider how that employee in that scenario will perform compared to the same employee with a boss who says, oh, look, it's chilled. If you want to take the computer, like the laptop with you, it's absolutely fine. Here, sign the indemnity. We know you've taken it with you. You'll have to bring it back tomorrow. And then you can head off. You can get your kids home from soccer. You can have dinner with your grandparents. You can whatever. And when you are ready to sort it out, then you can work on it. But I need it done by this time. Accountability, golden tip
Yeah.
number 2.
Okay.
Holding people accountable without micromanaging. That's how you're going to get the best out of your neurodivergence.
Okay.
But now I'm giving away all my material, so.
And I think that is something that is really important. Because even on my side, uh, also on my side, it's something that I've been keeping on the lockdown. But
Oh,
I've
yeah.
I've been for the longest time I've been actually wanting to to bring the team into some sort of an office space, which basically,
Right.
where you can be able to control the culture of the company. Because sometimes I think one thing that, as you've mentioned right now, at the very same time, with what you've mentioned, there is something that I think we need to look at, which is uh the company culture. It is important, and it also plays a very huge role in what you are saying. And what do I mean by this?
That's so true.
You know, and what do I mean by this? Basically, uh, the moment you okay, let me just say like this: they do not have to be best friends. They do not have to be good friends. But
They're
then,
associates, they're colleagues, yeah.
you know, but the moment you give them that the moment you give them that space, or you give them that thing where they can start to gather around, they can play with ideas, they can start, the moment that starts to happen, I think it also gets to what you were saying, which is accountability, and also
Absolutely.
and at the very same time, uh, you might just give them let's say you can say to them, you can you can take the laptop, you can take this, you can take that, but as long as you finish with this specific project at this specific time,
And get my stuff back to me safely, yeah.
then everything should be good. I think it would definitely it would definitely work, and it's been something that I've been thinking about a lot,
But it's
actually.
so dependent on the employer's capacity to recognize what they can and can't control. Because a mistake that I've noticed, right?
Okay.
I have had the privilege. I've been working since I was 15. I've had the privilege of seeing how a few rather big franchises work.
Right.
And I've been appalled at times. Because wait, hang on. It happened again. What was I saying? What did I say before this?
You were talking about we were talking about the what's this? Uh Also, what was that? We were talking about the what's this? We were talking about the company culture, and also you were mentioning.
Yes. Right,
You
got you.
got it now?
I'm
Oh,
back
okay.
on the my brain like skips ahead a few jumps sometimes and then I get lost. I get left behind. My mouth gets left behind, essentially. But with this company culture, I think a lot of the time, because companies, like you say, they want to control that, this is the environment that we work in. These are our values. These are our policies, all those things.
Yeah,
And we're a family here. No, you're not. No,
true,
you're not. Because if you were a family, you wouldn't be imposing something that could, in any way, like someone could fundamentally disagree with. But hey, because we're at work, this is business. So keep your emotions out of it. Neurodivergents can't keep our emotions out of anything. And thank God for it, because it is our emotions from which we draw a lot of that creativity and inspiration. We're incredibly emotional people. And I think the more we can embrace that, the more we can make that acceptable in the business world. Wow, what a difference. I mean, can you think how these neurodivergent employees could soar in the right environment? But again, like I said, it's based on the employer's capacity to recognize what they can and can't control, and to recognize that company culture as a collective process. That's not something that, hey, Mr. CEO at the top can decide upon, or I don't know, his admin and his secretary or whatever, and then just pass it down and then it filters down and now everyone else must do it. That is not a company culture. So if we want to create a company culture, one that actually means something, it's got to be collaborative.
true. Honestly, true. Which actually gets to what you were saying, which is, uh, you do not have to say that this is what. Oh, let me just say, you do not have to say that uh people can't go to work or anything like that. You do not have to say that, or you do not have to give them that what's this word that I want to get out there? You do
It's
not
that
have
generic response, it's that robot kind of well, this is the policy and this is how we work. We
exactly,
need to bring humanity back into our businesses, because that is
exactly,
what people want and need in this day and age. You're so
e-
right.
exactly. If that means that there needs to be some sort of there needs to be, let's say, a room where the team gets to chill. If it means that you need to actually bring in, let's say a gym area, if it means that you need to bring in, let's say a game room or something like that, on my side, I think those are things that you should literally allow,
That
because
is so dope.
you know
Like I think the company is Google. I think it's Google that does this in the States. But they've literally got like smoothie bars and fridges with
that is
healthy
true,
snacks
and
at
also Meta, they
at
have that.
work, like with crisp apples, and like it's free. You know what I'm saying? But your
Yeah,
employees then don't have to stress about eating healthily, about eating before they come to work or whatever, and they feel looked after by the company. It's not about reminding your employees about everything you do for them. It's about creating an atmosphere of, I know that I can depend on you, and you know that you can depend on me. And there
yeah.
is a mutual human respect there, regardless of who's manager, who's inferior, superior, whatever. No one's going to work effectively without that. But that's just my 2 cents.
I actually agree with that. I actually agree with that, and I think it's
I
something
love
that,
that.
I think that it's something that needs to be implemented, and of course, some, with other businesses, it's sometimes a matter of profit first, which now gets
So
to a, you know,
true.
which now gets to a point where
Oh,
there isn't that company culture. It's just a matter of start pumping up the
yeah.
money. Let's make sure that this happens,
Yes.
which at the very
And there's
same.
there's a lot of places, a lot of companies where your manager will be your best friend if you're doing well, and he'll be like the worst person you've ever met when you're not. And having your boss's respect for you tied um to your performance, that doesn't work. It's one thing to, like, okay, your employee is in trouble or whatever, but there is a basic level of respect that needs to remain regardless. And I think that level is a lot higher than most people think it should be,
True,
you know?
true. So I think that, thank you very much actually for sharing that part, and I think it's something that is really amazing. And also at the very same time, I actually had a question here which I was going to ask you, which is, can you share some strategies or tools that you basically teach to help organizations or to teach organizations effectively, uh, you know, what's this question? You know,
No, I know
you're
exactly what
starting
you're
to actually
saying.
rub it, so let me just ask you that question again.
Oh my gosh, now we have to like touch wood because now it's going to switch back to me. I don't want it. I got rid of it. You got it now. I don't want it back.
It'll have to go back to you, and then you have to give it back to me. It's
Oh,
just that thing,
damn.
You- But yeah, can you share some strategies or tools that teach you to help organizations effectively manage and harness the strengths of neurodivergent employees? That was the question that I was going to
Yes.
ask you, and I think you did dive into it a bit. But yeah,
But I think this is a very, very interesting question because this is exactly how you get your problem employees, the ones who always like they never meet deadlines, they run late for everything, they're not showing respect for, they're showing complete disinterest in that company culture that you've worked so hard to curate, you know. Um, and I think in situations like that, right? Let's take the time thing, for example.
yeah,
For time blindness, this is my golden tip for this side of it, right? When it comes to our actual time blindness, so let's say it's your employee who's like never meeting deadlines, he's always running late for everything. You need to tell him that the deadline is like no, he knows the deadline for
yeah,
everyone else and everything, and that's still like the main deadline. But he also knows that his boss wants it from him a week earlier, so that she can check it, send it back with feedback, he can fix it, and she can hand it in with the others. And that's not discrimination. That is responsibility that comes with the accommodation that we're asking for. This is a two-sided coin. You know what I
okay,
mean? It can't be one of those things where people are jumping on on the bandwagon and being like, but social outrage. No. There is there's as much as we have a right to things, we have a responsibility, like in order to uphold those rights, right?
yeah,
So I mean, we got to think about this the same way. Um, but that's definitely it's it's getting to know your team, and that's why that human connection is important. Getting to know your team, and for neurodivergence, getting to know your own brain and learning to trust your brain. Because a lot of the time, like I was saying, this happened to me. I only found out that I had ADHD when I was 21. And yet, when I was 15, 16, 17 in high school, I figured out that I am better off studying by cramming the night before than I am from studying in advance. First of all, because I can't study in advance. I tune out. My brain, it doesn't brain. My brain, she's not braining, it's giving Zimbabwe.
I fully
And
understand.
so you get me, dude. Same WhatsApp group. And so, when I know when my brain works and when my brain doesn't work. I know the circumstances that I can function within and that I can't function within. And knowing those limits and being honest with myself about those limits, because we naturally compare it to everyone else and we think, oh, I should be able to do this because everyone else can. But knowing that this is where my comfort zone lies makes it a lot easier to control your productivity. So if we can create that kind of dynamic with our employees in some way, with our students in some way, it's ideal, but it takes knowing your brain, it takes knowing your team, it takes trusting and establishing that level of trust, whether it's within yourself, with your own brain, or I got distracted. When I was in high school, 16, 17, whatever, I figured out all of that about studying in advance, right?
Yeah.
And I remember like being told off by I was on daily reports. That's what it was. I was on daily report in matric because
Okay.
I was bunking half my classes and watching Netflix in the rest at the back of the class. And I would like go and bunk and like smoke a cigarette on the soccer field because at this point I was like, stuff this. I'm doing my own thing. And I happened to suddenly do better than I had ever done academically from just like, okay, so instead of torturing myself, you know, for like 20 years through school, varsity, whatever, and like trying to hammer information into my head. If I drink a cup of coffee, if I concentrate the amount of caffeine that I take in only to times when I know I need to hyper focus for long periods of time, then it means I can have a cup of coffee at 9 p.m. the night before the exam. I can get cracking. I can get down to work. I can study all of it. I can suck up all of that information like verbatim in my brain and vomit it back out onto the paper the next morning when I write. And it'll work out fine. And my brain won't do it if I try and do this slowly and in a non-pressurized environment. But that's part of my executive functioning not working properly. So, you know?
Yeah. And you know what's actually interesting is that way of actually having to utilize it. I've noticed that it's basically what works best, have you
For
know
sure. It's more
having to
authentic. It's genuine.
you know it,
You and I think you don't get caught up in a lot of the details. For someone with a memory like mine, it's very easy to get caught up in the details because, oh my gosh, I don't know what's important. What's the teacher going I'm just going to put all of it down and then the teacher can mark the ones that are correct. You know what I'm saying? And studying this way forces me to summarize and focus on the important points and to actually strategize and go, right, in the context of this information that has been given to me in the textbook, what kind of questions are these teachers looking to ask? Like, where are they going to try and catch me out? I can see it. I can spot them out. And because I'm studying differently, I'm taking in the information differently, and I'm able to produce the information a lot more differently in summarized points, which does me a lot of good. It's a lot of good.
which is quite impressive. It's really quite impressive, you know.
I appreciate it, but at the end of the day, it's just getting to know one's own brain and learning to trust yourself. It's also incredibly difficult, I think, at times, and there's it's like a delicate balance because of that accountability issue. People like me, ooh, we struggle to hold ourselves accountable. If you ask me to hold myself accountable to deadlines, it's not going to happen. I have to be accountable to other people in order for me to be motivated to get something done when it needs to be done. And that that definitely plays a part in it.
Okay. And I actually did notice that.
Oh
I
yeah. Oh
yeah.
yes. Yes, you've
Yeah.
seen it already. See, I didn't fill out Simanya's form. I completely forgot. I was running late today. I'm telling you, Simanya's gotten the full like ADHD breakdown from me already. Like he's seen it in action.
So I know it. I've seen it basically. So I'm safe to say that yeah, ticked. I'm
Ticked.
ticked. So so I'm honored basically. I'm
I
quite
feel
honored.
honored as well,
You know.
Simanya.
Yeah. And
And I
then
think it's so special that you're creating a narrative around this. It's really, really, it's important that there are people out you who are getting these messages out there in the way that you do. There's not everyone that can do what you do. And again, like you said, it shouldn't be taken lightly, right?
thank you very much.
Oh,
Thank you.
stop.
Thank you very much.
Stop.
Stop it, I like it. Stop it, I like it. Stop. You know,
I'm so glad I'm not the only one who says that because people always check me scared when I do. Sorry, we're getting very distracted. Okay.
very distracted. And now let's move on to the next question now. On a serious note. Next question.
Okay, serious note.
Serious note. So now another question. How do you actually tailor your teaching methods to reach different audiences, from students to business leaders when discussing neurodiversity?
That is wow. Look at you. You have just essentially explained the next step in my business plan that I haven't gotten to yet.
So
So it's literally for me, it's a matter of just connecting on a one-on-one basis and recognizing where people's there are sensitivities, right? It's just being sensitive to other sensitivities. And you can tailor the way that you approach someone, how you phrase things, I'm telling you, you can get very clever with the psychology stuff, eh? But it gives you a lot of leeway in that sense.
okay. And that, I think it's something that is, how can I actually put it? I have it in my mind, but I can't actually get it out.
I'm so glad it's not just me. I'm so glad it's not just me, Simone. I'm awful.
It's one of those
Because
things.
it's not even a thing where like I can't find the right word. It's like I can feel what I want to say, but verbalizing that's like decoding. Like I don't know how that works.
It does actually happen, where you actually you have something that you want to say, but you just can't get it out, you know?
Right?
Yeah,
The way
but
you intended.
yeah. So I think now, with that said, now let's head on to the next question. Since we're looking at the time now, now it's we really need to, and so
Yeah.
and so on the side, as a psychology student, I mean, and advocate, how do you actually balance, right, your academic studies with your work in teaching and spreading awareness about neurodiversity?
I love this question. My boss looks at me on a daily basis and she's like, I don't know how you do it. But it is genuinely just it's me capitalizing on my ADHD. It's me doing what I'm teaching everyone else to do. So because I'm so ADD, bouncing around from one thing to the next and switching my focus like that is quite easy for me when I'm on medication. If I'm not on medication, that's a very different scenario. But that's the whole point, is that being on those meds, having the right medication, having the right therapy, having all those things in place makes it so much easier for me to capitalize on these strengths that my ADHD provides. As well as that, I think I'm capitalizing on the memory thing like big time, because there's no way I could work a full-time job and like attend lectures, and I mean I can't be in two places at the same time.
At the same time.
But I can prioritize where my presence is most valuable.
Okay.
My presence is not valuable in a lecture. And it's not valuable to me. It's not valuable to anyone there. And it honestly just costs me petrol money, and it's a risk because that Empire Road is dangerous with the taxi. So, inevitably I think I lost it. What was I saying? What did I say?
You were having a discussion about you were saying that uh s- you come on, come on. So you were basically saying that uh in terms of the psychology, being a psychology student, what tends to happen is that,
Oh, how do we balance it? Yes, how we
yeah,
balance everything.
or
Okay, no,
to
I'm back
thoroughly
on the same train. I'm
you got
telling
it,
you.
or should I explain it to you, or not?
I I do have to say to you, this is the most this has ever happened to me in a podcast. So I feel like,
Same
I'm
here.
dropping bombs, but that it balances out.
Same here. To be honest,
Oh man.
it's honestly the first time. Literally.
Oh, I love that. I love
Literally.
that. I love that though, because you want that kind of authenticity. I was talking to someone about my podcast, and I was saying, what happens if this happens while I'm hosting a podcast? Like, and my brain just goes blank. And she looked at me, it was Marie. And Marie
Okay.
looked at me and she was like, you need to keep it in there. I was like, hmm? She goes, no, you need to show the authentic moments of
Yeah.
like, this is what it looks like. This is practically, because that's what we're trying to communicate to people in a way perhaps that they can understand a bit better. But seeing it in action and seeing that the things that are supposed to be so polished aren't necessarily always that polished, adds that human factor that we're looking for. When I'm looking at the psychology side of that question, um, I, you know, I can choose, because there's no value in my time being spent there in that lecture. There's no value for me. There's no value for anyone else. Where would my time and my presence be considered more valuable to me and to everyone else around me? It's most valuable where I work, actually, when I'm with my kids, when I'm teaching, when I'm doing admin, and I'm running around like a mad person from studio to studio. Um, but that's really the key to it, man. Plain and simple is it's just knowing where you are valued and where you get value.
Okay.
Got to marry the two.
Dropping some bars.
Mm.
Bars. Now this is the last question. So, uh,
Vibes.
yeah. So what advice would you give to leaders and educators who are trying to, or who are just starting, to learn about neurodiversity and want to make a positive change in the environment?
Listen more than you speak. That's it.
Clean.
Listen more than you speak. And
And
listen to hear, to understand, to try to place your brain in the mental space that that person's brain is in. And you might find a lot of what you see that seems so out there and seems so, oh, that's abnormal, that's inappropriate, that's uncomfortable, actually might make a little bit more sense.
okay, which I think at the very same time, if you are to look at sales or selling, that's the most
Yeah,
important thing that you need to focus on, which I
that's
fully
so
understand,
true. Because that's how you establish need, right?
exactly. So fully
So many
understand
parallels. Mic
it.
drop, man.
you know. But yeah, just now to try and make sure that we 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 get into it a bit, and just to make sure
hmm
that we close the podcast. So basically now, where can people actually find you? And no, actually, do you have any advice that you would want to give out that probably I didn't ask you?
I think um any advice that I could have to offer is kind of null and void in a general sense because of the fact that this is such an individual experience, like for each person, right? Which is why I want to encourage people, please write to me on Spectrum Support. We'll include the link below, and Spectrum Support will write back. We post on Sundays. And you can definitely take a look at the website. There's links to the podcast and pretty much everything on there. That website is my home base. But if you would like to, you're also welcome to connect with me on Facebook. There is a Neurodiverse Generation Facebook page and group that you are welcome to join, because I use that platform a lot to get feedback from my listeners, to get feedback from my people, my neurodivergents, about what it is that we need to be talking about more. So please, I really want to hear from you. Hit me up, man. Hit me up. And
Uh,
Simanye, just thank you to you. You are the most phenomenal host. I love what you're doing. Mad respect, man.
Thank you very much. And also, I was actually going to ask you, where can people actually find you? But you've actually filled everything out. So thank you very much for that, and thank you for being on this podcast
Amazing.
interview, man.